Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andy Simmons. I'm our VALT Education Specialist here. Appreciate you joining us for our IVS Unleashed webinar for May, which we're just entitling What's New in version 6.4. Go ahead and share my screen and we'll get going today. All right. Before we get going, everybody is muted and it'll be muted the entire time, but the question section is open and our wonderful Jeanette Lee from IVS is in the chat. So feel free to ask away. And if there's anything that we don't get to during the webinar, we'll be sure to reach out to you afterwards, just to make sure that you get your questions in there. And I'll also leave the webinar open for a couple of minutes once we're done with the presentation, if there's any other questions or answers that need to be had. All right, so the plan for today, there's three items on the agenda. Two of them I'll go over very quickly, and one of them will be the bulk of what we're doing. So first, upgrade cost. We are looking at an upgrade or an update to your Vault software. But as always, if you're a customer of ours and you have an active support agreement, there is no upgrade cost, right? Your software with us is evergreen. So at the end of this, I'll go over what it entails if you'd like to upgrade to version 6.4. But again, there is no upgrade cost. You are entitled to this latest version. Next, release notes. So I'm going to be showing about 6 new features of VALT 6.4, but like any software update, there's a lot more than 6 features. These are just kind of the main demoable features that we'll be showing, but there's lots of bug fixes, lots of, minor things that we won't be showing today. So let's go ahead and take a moment, and I'm going to show you where you can find our release notes. So if you log into your instance of Vault and you click on your profile picture in the lower left corner, you'll find the help icon. And yes, I do show this in every one of our webinars, but I think it's important to note how to get to our wiki. So if you go to the IVS wiki /FAQ, you'll find where some of you actually registered for this webinar. Down below, you'll find video content. So all of our features from 6.4 that I made, if you need to hear me again, our previous webinars that we put on the last handful of months. But in the upper right, you'll find 2 things. One of them is all of our release notes. So here's the version that if you updated today, you'd be put on. But all of the release notes from every major and minor version you could find in here. So if you want to see everything that we've added in to any version and coming from where you are to today, you can find that right within that upper right corner within our wiki. I also want to point out, because it's fairly new, IVS Brunch, which is our monthly newsletter. I know a lot of people are a little tired these days of email newsletters, so we don't inundate you. We send it one time a month, and it's for things like product updates, offers, webinars, so things that actually relate to the work that you do every day. So we do highly suggest that you subscribe to our IVS Brunch newsletter, and you'll get that once a month, and it'll keep you updated on things like this webinar. All right, let's head back to our presentation. So for the demo, which is going to be the majority of what we're doing today, what we're going to cover are these 6 main items that were added into version 6.4. So I'll start with 3 kind of big ones: motion detection, so the ability to actually begin and end a recording based on motion in a room. Some of the updates we put into the sharing link, which if you use the sharing link, these are some highly requested updates. Copy a schedule, which will bring the scheduling feature a little more in line with some of the other features in Vault. And then Zoom Step, which is probably better referred to as like Zoom sensitivity control, and that'll relate to the mouse wheel. And then some needed improvements to both the announcements and our administration, our settings. So we're going to get started with motion detection. This is actually the largest new feature that's added into Vault. And it's something that you already kind of have access to and you didn't even realize it. So let's go ahead and jump into Vault, and we'll start with motion detection. All right. So motion detection, again, is the ability to activate a room to begin a recording when somebody walks in and your cameras detect motion. So there's a few things that we need to do, because you really have to kind of think about what this entails. We want users to be able to set up a room. We want certain rooms to be activated and maybe other rooms to not be. And then there's going to be some other varying controls like, okay, what if there are multiple quote unquote rooms within the same large room? I don't want motion over there to affect my recording over here. So there are three different items that we're going to take a look at, but we'll start, as always, in VALT with the settings and activating this for a user group. So whichever user group of yours you want to be able to turn on or off motion detection for a room, you're going to go into the settings, users and groups, and then select the group you want to give this permission to. And we'll scroll on down to rights. So when we're beginning a recording, regardless of how it's beginning, that's always going to fall underneath the observe. We're observing what's going on in a room, and within that, we're starting a recording. So motion detection, you'll find in observe, recording. And then you'll find kind of towards the bottom, motion detection. If I hover over this, it says grants the ability for a user to enable motion detection in a room. It doesn't automatically say, okay, every room's now going to start when there's motion. It grants the users in this group the ability to basically prep a room to begin a recording. Before we take a look at what this actually looks like in a room, we also want to think, okay, you have a lot of rooms in your VALT instance. Are there ones that we want to be motion activated and ones that we don't? So aside from giving users the permission to toggle this on and off for a room, we'd like to identify which rooms this is best suited for. So after giving your user group permission, go on over to rooms and devices and take a look at your different rooms and say which ones you think motion detection would be best suited for. So if I click into, say, SimBay 2 to edit this, I'll now find 3 new items underneath this. And some of you might not be familiar with this screen. That's okay. You'll just pass this webinar on to your administrator, but you'll find a toggle for motion detection. That means this is one of those rooms, SimBay 2, that we want to be able to start a recording when somebody enters the room. Motion detection limit's going to say, all right, once the motion's done, once the person left the room, how long should we wait till the recording stops? Maybe people are in and out, and we don't want it to happen very quickly. So you set this at a longer time. So 1 minute is going to be the shortest amount. After 1 minute of no motion, the recording will stop. Or I can extend this all the way up to like 2 hours and 59 minutes. Let's leave mine at 1 minute. That is the default. And then because nobody's clicking to begin the recording or to end it, we need to say who's going to be the assigned user, who's the author of this recording. So who should this go to? Is there a professor? Is there a director? Who does this video get assigned to? And they could always reassign it to somebody else. But by default, we have this going to Adam. But we could set any of our various users within VALT as the default author for this specific room. So now we have the room set up. When SimBay 2 has somebody walk in, the recording will start, and after 1 minute, it'll stop, and it'll assign that recording to Adam. So let's go ahead and take a look at a room. I'm going to go into Observe, and I'm going to go to SimBay 1 here. I have it activated for this one as well. And you'll have this new icon here if you activate it for the room. And by default, you won't have that green check. You might have just seen me uncheck. But by giving my user permission, I can now toggle this on. Right now, it's disabled. If somebody were to walk into this room, nothing's going to happen. But I have the user group permission to enable it. That's what the right just did. It gave me permission to click this box. And now if somebody were to walk into this room, these various cameras, not the encoder here, but the various cameras will detect motion and instantly start recording. I wanted to make sure that this would work well for the webinar today, though. So rather than having somebody go and walk in, I'm just going to grab a quick video, and you'll see in this exact room what this looks like. So here's the room that we're looking into right now. And you'll see my colleague Jeanette walk in it. And once she leaves the room, after 1 minute, the recording will end. And this will now be in my review. So if I leave this checked, it'll keep going. Another recording could start if somebody came in again. If I uncheck it because I have the user permission to do so, now nothing's going to happen. You might notice a couple things though. There's a window here. If somebody were to walk by, we don't want the recording to start, right? There's opportunity for motion to be caught by these cameras that we didn't actually look for. Or again, if you're in an area where there are 3 different beds and you just want certain areas to be captured, we need to account for that. So this camera here that I'm looking at, this southwest ceiling camera, it can be problematic if somebody were to walk by there and every time that happened, a recording started. So there's one other setting that we can put into place at the camera level to say, all right, don't capture anything over here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my settings and account for that. The P3265 southwest ceiling. I'm going to go to my rooms and devices, find that camera. Here it is right here, and make some modifications. You'll find within here a few different items that say motion detection. So sampling frequency, how often is it looking for motion? By default, it's just set at a half a second. If for some reason you feel like you need to adjust that, you can. Motion detection sensitivity, by default, it's at 100%, but you can make it more or less sensitive to minor motion. Again, if you want, just leave those two as always. But motion detection mask, this is what I was getting at here. I have a couple set up already, but I'm going to go to edit this. And now I can click on an area that I want to mask or black out from motion detection. So now if anybody walks by this window, my motion detection will not start. Or if for some reason, you want it the other way, you can actually invert this. That's the only spot I'm looking for now. Let's go ahead and apply this. And now you'll see there's one area covering 9% of it. And if anybody walks by that window, the recording is not going to start. And that's it. That's motion detection. Again, I mentioned I took up almost half of our time here on that because it's a major update. Your cameras are already set for it. If your camera is less than, like, say, 10 years old, it's going to work for this. You just need to be on version 6.4, activate it for the user group, activate it for the rooms, and then if you want, block off any areas that your specific cameras are looking at. All right, and that's our motion detection. The rest of these, I promise, are going to go much quicker. Now we're on the sharing link updates. So the sharing link, for anybody that's not currently using it, is the ability to give someone who doesn't have access to VALT the ability to watch what you're watching, either in live observation or in review. So a lot of times this is used for, say, a family of a child who's in a therapy session and they're out in the hallway on the same network watching live or watching in review on, say, a tablet. So in observe or review, if I were to click on a room or a recording, you'll find this share settings icon. And traditionally, when I click on that to create a sharing link to give out, all it's going to ask is, like, when do you want this to expire? How long do you want this good for? 24 hours, never expire, whatever it might be. And when I create a new sharing link, I can send this out, and then anybody who has access to this, anybody I send this out to, can watch what's going on in here. And again, traditionally, I'll open up an incognito window. Traditionally, when you go to this, you just see that specific room, and I can't do anything else. I can just watch. So again, it's for somebody, probably for somebody who doesn't have access to VALT, or maybe, that we have some schools that use this and the students don't access VALT. They just use the sharing link. However you need them to access it, but they can't do anything else. They can't go to settings. You can see there's nothing over along the left-hand side. The updates we made in version 6.4 are in review. So if you have a video, let's go ahead and maybe grab this one here. If we have a video that's in review, normally I can give the exact same share settings, but now you'll see there's two other options: share comments and guests can create markers. Share comments would be if people who are accessing VALT leave a comment or put any sort of marker in here. You can see there's a marker left here. When I share this out, the users will be able to see that. Now, we didn't see that in the last one, right? There were no comments. It was just watching live observation. But now they'll be able to see my comments. And secondarily, guests can create markers. So again, if you have those parents that are watching their child in a therapy session and you want them to leave some notes, you can give them access to that as well. Create a new sharing link, copy the link. I'm going to make another incognito window here. And you'll see that now I have the comments icon. When I open this up, I can see the comment that admin user left. Again, I'm viewing this right now as if I was like the parent or the student or whoever doesn't have access to Vault. And because I gave myself that second permission, here is the guest leaving a comment as well. It'll just show up as guest. We don't know who it is using this link. You give the link out to 5 different people. But now I have access to see comments and potentially leave comments. And if I go back in as that admin user that I've been using, you can see the guest comment. So a nice addition to a feature that already existed. Again, it's the sharing link within the review, not within live observation right now, just within the review. Right. Now we're on to number 3, copy a schedule. So this is kind of like taking an existing functionality that we have in some areas of the software and incorporating it into the scheduling feature. So for any of our customers that utilize the schedule to start and stop recordings, you now can save yourself a little bit of time when you create those schedules in the first place. So if you haven't used the schedule, this is actually a good time to know this. When I go in to create a schedule, again, this is just another way to start or stop a recording. We can say, the name of the schedule, where it's happening, who's the author, when it starts, how long, and when does it repeat. So if you know that every single Tuesday, there's going to be people in this room and I need that recorded for 1 hour, you set that up right now. But if you're a large facility or you have, just a lot of different students that are in and out, or a lot of employees that are in and out, this can be time consuming and kind of obnoxious really to just keep creating these schedules. So rather than adding a new schedule every single time, now when I hover over an existing one, you'll see the copy feature. And this actually already exists if you use our templates. So if I go into settings and templates, if you use our information or comment templates, we've always had this ability to copy these. So again, it's just a functionality that exists elsewhere in the software. So if I want to repeat this, instead of Tuesday session, I need this to be every Wednesday as well, but in a different room. Let's copy it. It's going to pull up all the same information, all the same share settings, who the author is, the retention settings, the pan tilt zoom camera settings. Everything is exactly the same, except for the recording name has copy in it. So let's just go ahead and modify this, call it Wednesdays or whatever, and change out anything else that we see fit. So I have it starting on a certain date, but we could change this out. We could have a repeat weekly, and whatever we need. I'm gonna change it from Tuesdays to Wednesdays. Take copy, and we'll now have a new one. Oh, time must be different in the future. I picked a time that was a couple months ago, but if I were to move this into the future, now we have our Wednesday session set up. So again, think about like how many clicks it takes just to set up one thing. Now you have the ability to set up every day, every room, every user, just by copying it and making those minor modifications. So that is our copy a schedule feature, and you'll find that right as you hover over any scheduled event. Now we're on to Zoom Step. And Zoom Step, a better term for this might be Zoom sensitivity control. So if you have pan tilt zoom cameras in your facility and you regularly use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out, it's always had the same kind of jump. Every time you scroll with the wheel, it jumped a certain amount. But depending on your facility, depending on what you want to look at, and depending on the user who's actually doing this, they may want a different type of control, a different level of control, zooming in a little faster or zooming in a little slower. So what we're going to do is go back into our settings, and this is user by user. So every person can have a different control for this. I'm going to go into users and groups, select a specific user. In my case, this is the admin user. And when I go into my advanced settings for this user, you'll find Zoom Step. So think of it like when I scroll, what's the step? How big is the step? And this is a number that's between 100 and 2,500. And if you forget that, you give us a call. We'll help you out. But by default, it's at 500. So your normal mouse scroll is 500. But maybe you need to move a little slower depending on what you're looking at. We can drop this again all the way down to 100. And when I save this, you'll see I'm going to go ahead and observe a pan tilt zoom camera. Here's a pan tilt zoom camera. Make this full screen, grab control. And when I say zoom in on the vitals here, it's a much slower zoom. Zoom back out, small steps. So if you need to be a little more meticulous with your zoom, you can drop that down somewhere underneath 500. And you can imagine, but I'll do it anyways. Go to users and groups, users, go back to my user. I am jumping kind of quickly here, but you'll get the recording if you need to refresh. My advanced settings, my zoom step. I'm going to bump this up as high as it goes, 2,500, 2,500 here. So now if you're in a facility where maybe the camera's a little bit further back, or when you zoom in, you want to zoom all the way in. You could imagine what's about to happen. I'll go back to my pan tilt zoom camera, make this full screen again for your viewing, grab the pan tilt zoom controls. And when I zoom now, one scroll moves much farther in. That was one scroll. It goes all the way in. So depending again on your use case, you might want to play around with that a little bit. And that's user by user. So if there's one person who is, kind of annoyed that it's not zooming in as much as they need to, you can up that a little bit, or the other way around. And again, it's a number that's going to be between 100 and 2,500. By default, it's set at 500. If you don't need to change it, leave it the way it is, but you have that option. That is the zoom step feature of 6.4. For our last two features that we're going to take a look at today, the first is announcement improvements. So announcements are something that's always been available in Vault on the home screen. When I go to home, this button right here will toggle on and off announcements. But traditionally, and in your version of Vault, if you're not on 6.4, which is what I assume, you just see a block of text here, and you can add or subtract any piece of an announcement. It's just one block of text for everybody. But you can see here on my announcements, these thin gray lines, I actually have 4 announcements for this user going on right now. Now, this one actually kind of fits in with the next one, which is admin settings, but there's a little more than just adding more than one announcement. I'm going to go into my settings and show you the different features that can be included with announcements here. Announcements, we actually moved to its own section because there's more to it than, I think it was in the general before. Either way, it has its own announcements now. Its own section. And when I go to add an announcement, it's actually more like a calendar. So I like this because this can be personalized to different groups of users or specific users. And you can prep stuff in the future, and you can remove things without having to go back in. So it's much more functional than it used to be. If I have a new announcement, we give it a title, put the content in, and then we can specify who is this for. Is it for a whole user group? All of our research admins, they need access to this. All of our admins and our simulation admins. All of them need to see this new announcement. Or are there specific users that aren't a part of that? I also need, John Fernandez here and Kevin. They need to see this announcement too. So we can say specifically who this is for, either large groups or individual users or both. But my favorite part about this is the display period. So usually you put an announcement in, it's there until you remove it. But now I can give it a range. When do I want this to first appear? And when do I want this to go away? So again, think of this as a calendar. You could have one for every month. All right, at the start of the month, here's the announcement. And I need that to show up all the way until the end of the month. So anything that I put in here now is not going to show up on our research admin, our sim admin, and John and Kevin's dashboards or their home screens until the 1st of June, and it'll stay there until the end of the month. And you could prep these as much as you need. I could save this one and create the one for July, the one for August, and so forth. You get the idea here. But this is nice in that you can have these specifically to new users, to users who've been around for a long time, to your IT staff, to groups, to campuses. Again, much more functional than it used to be. So while we just kind of called this improvements, it really is kind of a world of difference. And those are our announcement improvements. Again, it's its own section now in settings. And last is going to be our admin improvements. Now, some of these you probably noticed along the way because I've been in the kind of playing around in the settings, circling around some of these, but ignoring them up to this point in the demo. But we added in a bunch of new features to our settings. Again, majority of this to just stay in line with everything else. Our goal with Vault is always just to have, you want to be able to already know how to use it, right? When you get it. Like training should not take all that long. You should jump into here and kind of get what's going on. And we want this to be that way for you. So when you go into settings, two things that you might notice off the bat. The first was the announcements. The second is the rooms and devices. In your version, it's going to say rooms and cameras, but we keep expanding our usage. There's now, phones, tablets, and who knows what's going to come in the future. So any sort of device that's accessing Vault, your encoders, they're all going to be within here. So kind of more inclusive term for what we're looking at. But when I go into rooms and devices, I was in here before, but I blew right past it. You'll notice that it first shows you the different rooms. And then when I click on a room, it shows you the different devices that are associated to it. And how is this more in line with what you're doing before? It's how the users and groups have always functioned. We've always had users and groups, groups, and then I click on groups and you see your associated users. So again, more in line with a section of Vault that you've seen before. The one thing you'll notice is next to the different groups, these are just checkboxes to delete, whereas in our rooms and devices, you'll see this right here. This is our ability to move these around. So instead of having SimBay 1 at top, if I'm always using SimBay 2, I can bump them up to the top. Now what this is actually doing is it's correlating to our Observe tab. So now if I go over to Observe, we'll see SimBay 2 at the top. So think about how you currently access different rooms, which ones you access most often. Are you scrolling all the way to the bottom to grab one that you added last? Well, why should it be that way? Let's go ahead and put things to the top that you use most often, save you a little bit of time and just, make your life easier as you're using Vault. So again, in our rooms and devices, by dragging and dropping these into a different order, you're affecting at a global level your ability to view these in the Observe. All right. The last new improvement to admin, back by popular demand. I actually wasn't going to show this one, but I changed my mind at the last second here. In general, you'll now find that you can use AM, PM, as well as 24-hour clock. This is something that used to be in Vault, left, and is now back. So if you prefer that 12-hour clock in version 6.4 in the general settings, again, so this is going to be for everybody, you have the ability to change it to AM, PM, or 24-hour. So those are all of our different admin improvements, and I'll just touch on them one more time. Announcements is its own section. It's now called Rooms and Devices, which is minor, but it's there. AM, PM is back, and the rooms and devices function a lot more like the users and groups, with the added thing that you can move these around in any way you see fit, so that you can better access your rooms within the Observe tab. Whew, I'm gonna take a breath here. 129, look at that. All right, so those are all the things we're going to show. Some of the other things were added into 6.4, notable improvements that we're not going to show today, but I just want to mention the integration with Vault Q. So this is our iOS app that walks you through a timed recording session, right? It's going to have on-screen prompts and visual and audio cues for things like ASCII testing. If you think that's something that would benefit your organization, Jeanette, who's been answering questions in the chat, she's going to drop a link to a video so you get to hear my annoying voice a little bit more. A quick overview of Vault Q. Feel free to take a look at that. Again, iOS only right now. And it's an app that will allow you to have your students carry around a tablet or phone and give them prompts and cues for their ASCII testing or any sort of timed training that you have going on. So feel free to take a look at that video. A minor one that was heavily requested, if you use the reports within Vault, so reporting on time or comments or anything like that, not right now, but in the version you're on, you can pull that to PDF. But in order to actually use that data, you probably wanted something more in like Excel or CSV. So in 6.4, you can export that data to CSV. So again, if you need to do a little more with the data from Vault, you can pull that to CSV. And I mentioned the 24-hour and AM, PM formats, so no need to talk about that any further. All right. Right on time. Next steps. If you would like to update to 6.4, all you have to do is just give us a call. Call your regional rep if you know who that is, so everyone around the country or the world has as a regional rep here. If you have that person's number, give them a call. If you don't know who your regional rep is, just call our general number and they'll connect you with your regional rep. And we do like to hold a brief readiness meeting just to make sure end users and IT staff know what's going to happen in the new version, that you're not going to be surprised by anything. So want to hold just a brief, 15, 20-minute call to walk through some of these features, walk through some of the changes that are made on the back end, and make sure that your organization is ready for that update. And if you want to see any more new features, again, visit our customer wiki from the help section of Vault. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll stop talking at you now. Appreciate you joining us today. Until next time, have a great one.